No, understandable.
Goodness.
Understandable. I'll ask you, defensive line getting back healthy. What do you think of these guys all coming back?
Okay, yeah, no, I think it's everything for this game. Now, I will say the Trevor Nowatzki one, man, that had me a little bit depressed today. You know, that's just the one positional group where it's like, are you serious, man? This got concussion. I mean, everybody's having to step in and just pull a little bit more, weight, right? And it's like all of a sudden, bam, this guy now has concussion. But for the defensive line, the question that was brought up earlier, and I don't want to go all the way into it, but it's just, this is going to be to me about stopping James Conner. Like when I look at this passing attack, honestly, it doesn't concern me a ton. I think they have some good weapons. I don't think it's a bad passing attack. We're not gonna shut it down. But I think when you look at like what this team is at their best, it's truly when James Cook is rolling. Like that's who they are. That's what's made all of the questions that came into the offseason. That's what answered everything. It was like, oh, we're going to run the football. That's why they used the 6 offensive linemen and all these tight ends, and that'll change because last week they really couldn't use 2 tight ends because their second tight end was a disaster when they don't have Dalton Kincaid. So to me, everything starts and kind of finishes here with what it's going to look like with Dalvin Cook, because this isn't a team that I feel like beats you with creativity up front. I mean, to the point where you're watching this team and you could just see the offensive line will literally cheat to where they're going on run plays. It's crazy. I'm watching it today. I'm like, dude, the right guard's like standing on top of the right tackle so he can block this guy. Like they cheat to their spots to that point where it's like, we're going to run the football. So I think it's everything to have those guys, and I think it's an excellent challenge.
Yeah, Dion, you brought up the Trevor Nowatzki injury. Just kind of in general, the defense, they've had to add all these pieces, the Quan Alexander, Jamal Adams. How do you think those guys have done so far, and kind of what are your expectations, even going into this week with just some of these newer guys on defense to step up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see where everybody's at with the Jamal Adams thing, because the response, of course, was going to be like, some people love it, some people are like, this is not it. And I'll be honest, like when we first made the move and I saw it, I was like, okay, this is probably going to be made as a big deal, but it's probably not going to be. But I couldn't help myself. I start watching Jamal Adams. I'm like, wait a second. I think we might have a dog here. If we use him correctly, you can't help it. Like he pops. He looks different when you watch him. You're like, especially when he's down there messing around in the box. Like this guy, he's just has a different skill set that you don't find. And I think it's going to be valuable down the road. And I think there is, with the Trevor Nowatzki injury, there's a path to him having a huge role in this game. I could just see that opening up, because it's like, why not? He's going to step in and play the run anyways. He can deal with tight ends. I could see the path to being a lot of Jamal Adams this week, but I love the Quan Alexander addition. I think to see him outsnap David Long, I think he did by 1 immediately, I think says a lot for where this could go forward, and I love it because a lot of these spots were like, well, this guy's going to come back, but we know when he's coming back, but it's at the end of the year. Having a guy like Quan Alexander, I think he's going to ultimately kind of end up replacing David Long. Don't dislike David Long. I just didn't think he was making plays, but I think it raised his play. I thought David Long was just playing super aggressive. It got him into trouble a little bit, but I thought he was super aggressive because Quan Alexander was there. So I think he's really kind of help us solidify it a little bit just in the meantime, because we do lose some things. Like Alex has a little bit more flexibility, I feel like, than what you get with Quan and what you get with David Long. They're kind of like pigeonholed into their role. You know exactly who they are, but there's real limitations to that. But to me, Quan plays it at a more consistent level, and I'm just hoping that with like more time, this whole 10 days off kind of thing, just more time, it's like, hey, the little play where a guy's running behind him, like that stuff doesn't pop up. The guy's played football. He understands this defense. I think it's just more time for him. But I'm very excited about that move because I think it really stabilizes, and we got to give a shot to this defensive line, dude. I mean, we got guys Miles Adams is doing some work last week. I'm like, are you kidding? This guy's doing some work. Jonah Williams. I mean, these guys were literally like, there is no other option. You have to play. It got to that point. It's like, I don't even know. I guess they're playing, and here they were, and give them credit because they, at very least, they held it down. They were solid enough.
Yeah, they held it down, and they're going to have their hands full again this week. And you got Josh Allen, but I kind of mentioned right before he came on, Dion, what do you think is going to happen with James Cook? They had, I believe, under 10 carries for 20 yards. And if you go back and look at what happens with the Bills, when James Cook gets 20 on the dot, he comes back and he usually has one of those bigger games throughout the year. So what do you think the Bills' plan is going to be utilizing James Cook? Because obviously this Lions offense puts up some points. That's their strength. The way to keep him off, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. So what do you think James Cook is going to look like on Sunday?
Yeah, I feel like this is a bad comparison because I in sort of ways have used this before, but they do remind me in some ways of watching the Indianapolis Colts offense. Like I get some vibes of that with Khalil Shakir kind of as their Josh Downs, and then they have these just monster receivers out wide. Now with Amari Cooper, it's like, oh, they have a number one, and you just like a 3rd down and 9. It's like, yeah, he's just gonna throw a go ball to him. It's like there's nothing fancy. He's throwing either a curl or it's a go ball. It's one of the two. There's not a lot of route diversity there for Amari Cooper, but it's like, but then they make the plays, and Josh is gonna make it happen. I think it helps out their pass protection. I don't trust this team as a team that wants to throw the ball a ton. I understood they put up a lot of points last week, but to your point, I don't think that's at all the Bills' recipe for what they're like, hey, how do we win a Super Bowl? Let's make it look like that. Like, I think they're trying to avoid that at all costs to make a game play like that, because I think last week we saw, I think they converted a lot of times in bad situations where it's not going to constantly work out that way. And that's the way I'm looking at it. It's like, that just can't be the case. You just can't give up 3rd and 10 plus. Like, just don't do that, because I truly think they're going to come back and say, we got to find a way to make this work with James Cook. I don't know that it'll work that well, to your guys' point. And if that's the case, I think we're in a great spot. So I would expect a lot of screens. I think the running backs are going to get involved a lot in a pass game. And they're going to try to make it an extension, because I really don't think they'll find much just straight downhill success. If they do, they'll lean on that, and it's going to be a game. But otherwise, I think it'll be a lot of the pass game for them. They have that little, like, goofy little screen check down like the Packers and stuff do. Like, they think that they've, like, reinvented the wheel doing that. Like, oh, let's put the tight end out there and have him block. I mean, you're watching that, like, all right, they think they're doing something crazy, but they're not. I don't think it's the most diverse passing attack. It's like, let's get some shots. Let's run some wheel routes. You know what I mean? Let's like, run everybody this way and throw it back. I don't think it's a great drop back passing attack, so I think it's all about James Cook.
Question about kind of the future here. We talked about Carlton the other day, and we can all agree he's been very good. And you saw when he didn't play, the drop off. What do you think? I think we all kind of mutually agreed you got to find a way to bring him back. He's playing excellent this year, and the Lions haven't had a true number one corner in quite some time, probably since Darius Slay. What do you make of the upcoming extension, or at least free agency for him? And do you think he should be extended, given you got other guys you have to pay? What's your kind of take on that whole thing?
Yeah, I'm completely with you guys, I think, on this. I'm absolutely paying this guy. And it was like, coming into it, I think the assumption was like, all right, he's probably going to miss like 5 games. Let's just be real. There's some way he's probably going to miss about 5 games this year. That's just unfortunately how it's been. But we all looked at the man coverage and we're like, that's going to fit here. But to be honest, what Carlton Davis said, my bad, the dog's acting crazy. What Carlton Davis surprised me with zone coverage, man. It's like the versatility that Carlton Davis has actually brought to this team. He fits in everything you ask him to do schematically, and then, of course, he's playing the run. I feel bad for him. He feels like he gets hurt, like, all the time, and he kind of like, ooh, every time he tries to tackle somebody. But yeah, I mean, I think when you have Carlton Davis, what it does is it makes it so even if he's not cornerback 1, he's contesting everything. So everything's a battle. He's you know exactly what you're going to get. He's going to get a couple flags. He's going to be crazy handsy, but at the same time, it's almost like the refs expect that. Like, yeah, he's going to be handsy. We'll just kind of let it go a few times. So I think I'm paying Carlton Davis. I think I'm bringing him back because when he's out there, I know I don't have really a weakness in the secondary, and that's key.
Hey, Dion, I do want to, excuse me, to drink water. The water almost came up. I want to bring up, though, just staying with the defense here. I have been talking about this week. It's interesting. Like, this is the best team, at least in my opinion, that this Lions team's going up against all year, and probably will see all season until you get to the playoffs or the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl. And defensively, it's been a great defense, but with all the injuries, we finally get to see them match up against a guy like a elusive quarterback like Josh Allen, and we get to kind of see where they're at and measure this out here defensively. How do you think they're going to stand up to him? And like AG being ready, obviously all the injuries. And do you think like the way the defense has played this year, they're going to be able to withstand that going into versus an offense like this?
I think you're 100% right. I think it's one of the toughest matchups just to start there. I think this is a team that in a lot of ways, I mean, they're built like this is a well-rounded offensive, defensive line. They're both really solid at both, and I think they played through their offensive line really well. The Josh Allen thing is just weird because it's like, okay, I could point to when we played Kyler, and I thought we played Kyler really well. I always feel like we played Kyler pretty darn well. And then there was Baker, which was like, okay, he's not Kyler, but Baker, I felt like the game broke open because Baker did some things, and Caleb Williams did some things. But then you see Anthony Richardson, you're like, all right, outside the first drive, we actually contained that pretty well. So it's almost like when you come into the game with like the assumption of that's who that guy is, you handle it pretty well. But then when you see a guy that's like, that's not really who he is, all of a sudden he starts to get loose. So it's almost like, if they come in with the expectation that they understand that this is who Josh Allen is specifically, as soon as it becomes third down, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine in this one. I'm actually more positive about a guy like this that like we're all talking about Josh Allen's going to run versus if you're playing a guy that's like, yeah, he's probably not really a threat there, but he's a little bit athletic and all of a sudden he's scooting just like Jared Goff does because nobody expects Goff to run and then he runs. They're like, what the heck are we doing here? I think we'll be better against Josh Allen because of that reason that there will be an expectation that this guy's going to run as soon as it becomes third down.
Yeah, I mean, that's what kind of hurt the Lions against the Vikings, especially Sam Darnold running for 39 yards. Because know Sam Darnold's athletic. Be like, what the fuck is Sam Darnold doing running for 40 yards? But I asked Morgan this, and there's a little bit of a internet issue there, so it's kind of hard for him to answer. But I think it's definitely going to be like a critical point. You just brought up on third down. Aaron Glenn, what does he love to do? Run man defense. You look at that wide receiver core. Amari Cooper is one of the best route runners I've ever seen in my lifetime. I think he's one of the more underrated wide receivers in the league right now. What do you think when you have Carlton matched up on Amari Cooper or even Terrion? Do you think that Amari Cooper being a guy that can beat man coverage pretty consistently, do you think he's going to give the Lions a little bit of trouble on Sunday compared to what he's done in the past? I know he had a big game last week against the Rams, but outside of that, he's been quiet. What do you expect out of Amari Cooper this Sunday?
All right, I'm going to sound crazy here, but I think the way that Amari Cooper rolls is you got to get him going like underneath early. I think that's going to be their strategy. Like I truly believe that if Carlton Davis is able to go just match up with Amari Cooper and there's not enough movement, because that's another thing. I don't think they constantly put you into, they'll come out with weird alignments where it's like, okay, now they maybe create a little stress, but I don't feel they create a ton of stress just based on like pre-snap. He's the guy moving around. He's going to be on the ball. So if the Lions are just like, yeah, put Carlton on him, I actually really like that matchup for Carlton. I mean, historically, he's done really well against bigger body receivers. And I think if their approach is like, yeah, we're just going to go vertical, it's not like you're dealing with Christian Watson who ran a 4.2 or something. It's like, I don't get that same fear factor from Amari Cooper, honestly. I think he makes a lot of contested grabs, and if you're like, hey, where's the situation that you could put Carlton in, they think he's going to best battle for, like, put him in contested spots. Make it so that he can play with a big body receiver, and it's like these are tight contested situations, and who comes down with it, that's what it's going to come down to. I'll take Carlton in that any day. I think that's where he's at his best, so I actually love that for him. Terrion, on the other hand, okay, now that might be, that'll be a little interesting because he will be a little grabby against that guy, I'm sure. But honestly, I really like our matchup against Amari. I like our matchup against these receivers in general. I just like how we match up with this team.
Yeah, well, give me speaking of the team, give me your score prediction. I'm curious to know. We had Morgan on. He said 38-21, I think it was. So Morgan Cannon from Pride of Detroit. So I'm curious, Dion, what are you thinking? How do you think this game's going to go?
Yeah, I think that this game ultimately is probably going to hit the under. I think both teams are going to try to run the heck out of the football, and then it may get to one of these things where it's like, all right, maybe neither of us can run the football that well. Hopefully we do, but it may just turn into that. So maybe the scoring comes along. I think the biggest thing for me with the score is always about the turnovers. It's like, where does it happen? Green Bay was like, this game, we have this, and all of a sudden it was, we're down by 7. It was like, all right, now here comes a lot of points. And it wasn't supposed to be that way, but because we turned it over on our own side twice. So I think that's kind of the thing I'm pointing to here is like which side of the ball. I don't think either team will be turning it over on their side of the ball, though, in this game. I think they understand how much possessions matter outside of just being overly aggressive. And I do believe Dan Campbell's going to fake a darn punt in this game. I just think if he's punting the first drive, he's faking that. He doesn't have I mean, I don't know where y'all are. I don't think he's looking at this like there's anything to lose at all. Like, hey, man, this is an AFC team. We're just going out here to let it fly. Like, the Green Bay was different, maybe, but this dude was going for it 5 times against Green Bay. What do you have to lose against Buffalo? Let's put on a show. So I think he's going to go for it early. I think he knows how much playing with a lead matters against this team. He just saw the Rams game. I have the Lions 30-21 as of now in this one.
I love it. Good stuff, man. Appreciate you as
Yeah,
always,
believe
Dion.
me.
You always fight.
Dion.
You always fighting some adversity with the microphone. You fight, you get back, you claw back up, take off a kneecap.
Some Dan Campbell grit.
You know what?
Right, I love
Yeah,
it.
some Dan Campbell grit.
Dan
You guys
Campbell
can check
guy.
out Dion, of course, at DoseOfDion 2.0. Dion, appreciate you, brother. Keep crushing. We'll talk to you soon.
Man, I appreciate y'all. And you know what? I got to give you guys this for the grit here, okay? You guys got 3 people on this panel, right? And I know how StreamYard do. They make it weird and it's like a triangle. There's no great way to space out 3 people. So I appreciate y'all for dealing with that because it's a weird spot, but y'all making it happen. So I appreciate chat. Y'all should appreciate the little things, man. That's the little things. And they're up here doing that. They don't care, man. I appreciate y'all having me.
Hey, shout out Dion, man.
Dion,
Shout
man.
out.
Hey.
Dion.
It's a couple gritty guys talking ball.
Come on,
there
now.
you go. Check him out. Show him some love, man. Big
All right,
game.
y'all.
We got Dion's opinion on it. Look at this man coming in preaching facts. But like, look at. I got my box. Hey, we all got our own little box. I like this setup. Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, FisherCTSports.com.